So now let us start our further discussion on how to make and some of the aspects during the making of the screen positives. Okay? So making the screen positives is the third major step in the production of a complete set of color separation half tone negative using the indirect method. The color correcting masks and the separation negatives, which are all continuous tone, were first made. The masks and separations were made to meet exact aim points that were specified when entire color system was set up. These marks and separations were checked on a densitometer and then remade if necessary until the aim points were made. They were made without regard to the content in the original copy. So we only have to follow the aim points. Whether the transparency was a picture of a black cat in a coal bin taken at midnight with the existing light being from a street light 2 blocks away shining through a dirty cellar window, or whether the subject was a transparency of a very white snowy mountain in the mid-time day at high noon, the masks and separations were made to the same requirements. Now, for the first time in the indirect color separation method, the subject matter of the original must be considered. Since the original copy usually consists of a transparency or a color print, both are photographically and hence both are subject to considerable variability. The color separation method will have to allow for this variability if a satisfactory reproduction is going to result. The original must be related to the known capacities of the printing process. As you can see in front of you from the data, which reveals the capabilities of the printing process. The minimum density that can be printed on the paper and still hold the dots that will give detail to the area is about 0.03 for offset lithography, highlight area, minimum highlight area. I think this we have seen in our tone reproduction curves also. This area is called the diffused highlight. Any area with less dot value will not be able to hold the dots on the plate and will become blank on white paper with no detail. This will be a specular highlight. On the other end of the scale, the maximum density that can be printed on good paper with good ink will be about 2, with a maximum allowable percent dot printing for each printer. There may be colored areas of the reproduction that will print solid with no dots at all, such as 100% magenta in a very fiery red color. This is perfectly acceptable in color printing so long as one of the other printers carries the dots to maintain the detail. Detail is sometimes referred to as drawing or mottling. So the cameraman must locate the diffused highlight, the specular highlight and the shadow areas in the original transparency. The diffused highlight is the whitest part of the transparency, that is a neutral white and has detail. As I already said before, the specular highlight is an area that is so bright and white that it has no detail, such as the reflection of light in glassware or silverware. When evaluating the mask, the transparency, make it very clear that the viewing light is white and not colored. The highlight area of the transparency is clear and will take on the color cast of the light source. 5000 Kelvin color temperature is now accepted standard white light for comparing colors, which will be, I'll be referring to standard illuminants and their spectral distribution, spectral power distributions when we talk about color and measuring color in the upcoming semester in PMS2. So there you will see these various illuminants like illuminant D50, D65. So 5000 Kelvin is D50, 6500 is D65. So then we have illuminant A. So a whole lot of different types of illuminants we'll be using. Now once these locations have been identified, the camera operator must adjust his screen positive exposure so that the highlight dot is located in the diffused highlight area The specular highlight must not print a dot at all. Positioning the highlight dot in the screen positives is the most difficult task for most cameramen to learn. There is no substitute for experience in this situation. The only way to be sure that it is properly located is to check the screen positive to make sure that no specular highlight is printing a dot, while none of the diffused highlight areas with detail loss lose the highlight dot. Now the second task is to locate the shadow areas of the transparency, that is the darkest neutral black. The shadow dot requirements must be printed in shadow areas of the picture obviously. To place the shadow dots in the proper step of the scale, the use of CC. I think I did not mention the full form of CC earlier. So CC stands for color compensating filters that will be necessary to adjust the contrast of the magenta screen, so that when the highlight dots are placed in the diffused highlight areas by exposure, the shadow dots will fall in the proper shadow step. Okay. Next we come about the midtone. We talk about the midtone location. That is very important, and this location has already been fixed by the earlier study of the printing data that you can see in front of you. Now if you see here, you will see that for a given highlight location on the original of 0.4, the magenta patch being the 1.3 step on the original transparency will print a density of 0.7. So it should be noted that the difference between the highlight and midtone location on the original grayscale is about 0.9 in density. So if you have to reproduce a transparency with the highlight dot located in the 0.2 density step of the original, then the midtone location would also have to be moved up to 1.1 step. It is very important to maintain the proper highlight to midtone range when screening. So whatever the highlight location, the midtone should be located at 0.9 down the scale from the highlight on the original step tablet. The placing of the midtone dots is controlled by both the exposure given to the screen positives and the color compensating filter used to control the overall contrast. Its location will be photomechanical, as it is determined by the density range that is built into the separation negatives. So if you find that with the proper highlight and shadow location, the midtone location is in the wrong step, it will be necessary to readjust the separation negative aim points to facilitate the screening. The separation negative aim points are based on the screening requirements. So you must finish the making of the screen positives before you can determine the ideal separation negative aim points. So let us analyze that what may happen if the highlight is not properly placed. What will happen? So obviously the picture will appear too dark or too light. Whites will look either dirty or there will be no detail left at them at all. Some highlight areas will disappear from the picture entirely, right? Colored areas such as red may print too much cyan and be dirty, and they may print too much yellow and be orange. Greens may appear brown, and skin may appear too bluish or too yellowish. So, and now what can happen if the contrast is wrong and the midtone prints too heavy or too light? The overall appearance of the reproduction will appear very dark or too washed out, like light, very light. Colored areas will not be properly balanced. Reds may be too dirty or too desaturated, giving them a pink appearance, and skin areas may look as though the person was sunburned, right? So all these things can happen if you do not have the correct contrast in the midtone or the highlight, etc. So what if the shadows is not properly located and the contrast is wrong due to the improper use of the color compensating filters, right? So now we come to the shadow part. We discussed about the highlight and the midtone part. Now come to what will happen if the contrast in the shadow areas becomes too difficult or too improper, basically due to the improper use of all these things, basically, right? So in that case, the shadows may become too dark or too light. The colors may become too desaturated, that there is no red, green or blue anywhere in the reproduction, or the opposite thing may occur. So what is that? The contrast may be too high so that all colored areas becomes large blobs of color that seem unrelated and have no subtle tones or details. They will appear artificial as if someone painted them into the reproduction. The same effect will be achieved if the black printer is printed too heavy. So the black printer should seldom print more than 80% printing dot in the picture. So it should be, remember that it only needs to make up for the difference between what the three process colors can produce and the 2.0 maximum density possible on the 4 color press sheet. So determining the location of the highlight, midtone and shadow dots for the reflection copy is considerably easier than in case of the transparency. Since most photographic prints are made on similar type of photographic paper, the paper itself becomes the specular highlight, right? Which just does not contain any dots. Uh, Perfectly white areas, highlight areas. The first tone noticeable on the photographic print usually falls around a density of 0.05. So unlike in your reflection copy, which was 0.03, now here we have a highlight starting from even greater density value, which is 0.05. The shadow is the same as the last step of the reflection grayscale density of 1.9. That is also reduced. So overall, density range is further reduced from the transparency. That hopefully you notice here, right? By placing the highlight dot just below the bare white print paper and the proper shadow dots in the last step of the grayscale, you will probably have a good screen positive. And if you have adjusted your separation endpoints correctly, the midtone control step will fall just slightly below the 0.7 step of the grayscale, about 0.75 density on original. The printing dot values determined for a given set of paper and ink conditions will be approximately the same for direct screen separations and indirect screen half-tone positives and or negatives, regardless of whether they were made from photographic separation negatives or scan separation negatives. So scan separation negatives we'll be talking about later on in the next lecture maybe. Only the techniques of achieving those dots will vary. Now, the examples given so far have been for the offset lithographic printing process. The other printing processes will call for still other dot requirements, even though the process color relationships for neutrals will remain roughly the same. For example, letterpress will require larger highlight dots, about 10%, to allow for the etching process. Otherwise, so much light, small dot sizes below 10% is not achievable in the letterpress process because of etching. While the shadows may be made to print slightly less. Screen printing may still need larger highlight dots. Whichever printing process is used, there will be a little difference in the masks and separations. The black printer for letterpress must be a full scale black and have dots all the way up to the highlight step. The importance of good paper and good inks have been assumed during this discussion of gray balance and tone reproduction, right? When the paper is not of high quality, the ink tends to penetrate the paper, causing considerable dot gain or dot spread. Then an entirely different set of END values may be necessary. I already told you earlier also, the maximum density achievable in uncoated paper is less than what we achieve in coated paper, right? Less expensive uncoated book papers used for process color printing will tend to reflect less light in the highlight areas. The highlights will appear darker unless smaller dots are printed in these areas. The shadow areas of the reproduction on this type of paper will absorb the layers of processing, making a matte surface. And as you know, that for any matte surface on any ink surface will scatter more light back to the eye, causing a visual appearance of less saturation. Density will increase obviously. Blacks will not be as black as they are on coated paper. The whites will be darker while the shadows will be lighter. This causes a loss in the density range of the reproduction and an apparent loss of contrast. The midtones printed on a more absorbent paper will often print heavier and darker because of excessive amount of dot spread. Also, if you remember our earlier discussion on multiple internal reflections, due to this, this will tend to allow some of the light striking the paper to penetrate the surface and never again emerge out of it. As a result of this, what happens? That overall density, apparent density increases, which it should not have increased, right? The total result is to darken up the midtones. This problem, added to the loss of highlight brightness and lighter shadows, tends to make the reproduction less attractive. A careful determination of the END values for tone reproduction and gray balance will point out to the operator what the required printed result must be. Generally, for papers of lower quality, more ink absorbent, the highlights must print smaller dot sizes. Sometimes, a diffuse highlight that would normally carry detail will have to be dropped out and not carry any detail at all. In order to create a white, one must sacrifice detail for contrast. The midtones will have to print smaller dot sizes in all three printers. The shadow areas can be made to print about the same dot sizes. As the result will be colors that are less saturated than those printed on coated paper. Without the changes, the whole reproduction will appear too dark and dirty. Compensation for paper conditions can be built into the separation negatives. The A-M range may need to be shorter than normal for good coated paper. Just shortening the overall density range may not be the answer. When excessive dot gain conditions exist in the midtones, it may be necessary to shorten the A-M density range and increase the M-B density range. These requirements can be determined exactly with the techniques described earlier, as I have already done in my previous lectures. Compensation for poor paper conditions can also be accomplished during the screening techniques. The amount of color compensating filtration may be changed, but the problem of changing the midtone dot sizes disproportionately to the highlights and shadows will be difficult with this method. The techniques of making screen positives using the 3 exposure method may be needed. By increasing the flash exposure and the bump exposure while shortening the main exposure, the midtones can be made to print smaller while the shadows will remain the same size. Now let us discuss a little bit about the other gravure process. With the gravure printing process, it is common to make screen positives with equal dot sizes in the 3 process colors. The printed 3 color scales will be nearly neutral for 2 reasons. During the etching process on the cylinders, the cyan can be etched longer to produce deeper and larger cells. Automatically that will mean what? The dot percentage, the cell amount of ink that is present in the cyan areas in comparison to magenta and yellow will definitely be increased, leading to gray balanced image. Also, the inks are formulated so that the concentration of pigment in cyan is greater than the pigments in the magenta and yellow. The total effect is the same as the unequal gray scales in the other printing processes. More cyan ink is laid on the paper, giving a neutral gray scale. Occasionally a brownish scale is encountered in gravure, but it is usually covered up by the black printer. So now hopefully you have understood the various aspects of making halftone screen negatives and positives, and now you know what exactly are the parameters for making the good screen positives, and what are some of the techniques that are available. Okay, so now let us start our discussion on how to make the screen positives. Okay, the mechanics of making screen positives can be very confusing in the beginning, right? But the main difficulty for the camera operator is making an exact judgment of the proper placement of the highlight midtones and shadow dots in relation to the original copy. Okay, separation negatives that are made of the same size as the finished reproduction may be screened in a vacuum contact printing frame using a light source for exposure. So let me find out if I have a picture of that or not. Maybe not. Maybe not. Okay. So something, just I'll show this picture itself so that you get some bit of idea about the process actually. So if the screen positives are to be enlarged or reduced, either a process camera or an enlarger with a vacuum easel must be used. The camera is first set to the desired magnification. The separation negatives are each placed one at a time on register pins in the opening of the copy board. Black paper is used to mask off the light around the separations to lower the amount of flare in the optical system around the edges basically. The copy board lights are placed behind the separation negatives with a frosted glass diffuser placed between the lights and the negatives. Since the image in the copy board is a black and white subject, litho orthofilm is placed on the vacuum back. I think I have a picture of it somewhere. Let me just check once, okay? Uh, yeah, this one, yes. So this is for the positives, and this when we are using the vacuum easel, and of course this is the camera. So this is the picture I was looking for. Yes, now we can proceed actually. So as I was saying that the magenta positive contact screen is angled and punched so that when placed on the register pins on the vacuum back over the film, the proper angle for each printer is achieved. It is not absolutely necessary to punch and pin the orthofilm. The relationship between the angle of the screen and separation negative angle is also very much important. So as you can see over here, we have used here a cyan having 15-degree angle, magenta 75-degree angle, yellow 90-degree, and black is having 45-degree angle. Each separation negative will be placed in turn in the copyboard until the 4 screen positives have been made. Calibration of the screen positive setup for proper exposure is most accurate when the cyan separation negative is used as the copy. Now it is customary to make the cyan screen positive first, as it will determine the correct tone reproduction for that set of positives. Once a good cyan screen positive is produced, the magenta and yellow screen positives will be adjusted to meet the equivalent neutral density requirements for that particular cyan density. Now the question comes about how to ensure contrast control. So the contrast of the magenta positive contact screen will be changed to fit the separations by placing a color compensating filter over the camera or enlarger lens, or over the light source in the case of contact frame screening. The filters change the color of the light that exposes the film, affecting the dot shape of the magenta dye in the screen. The screen's effective basic density range is changed. So let us define basic density range. It is defined as the range of densities on the copy that the screen is capable of reproducing. Yellow filters will make the basic density range longer, thus lowering the screen contrast. Magenta filters will shorten the basic density range, which increases the contrast of the screen. The range of cyan dot sizes for offset lithography was defined earlier as 5% for highlight to 95% for shadow. It becomes necessary to adjust the contrast of the contact screen so that when the 5% dot is placed in the highlight areas of the cyan separation negative by exposure adjustment, the 95% dot will fall in the shadow area. This can be done by the use of the correct color compensating filter. Right? To stretch the range between highlight to shadow dot location, thus making the basic density range longer by approximately 0.1, add a color compensating yellow filter to your lens if you are having a pulsed xenon or carbon arc lights. Okay, and to shorten the basic density range by approximately 0.1 and make the highlight dot fall closer to the shadow dots, will require either using a less color compensating yellow filtering or addition of color compensating 20 magenta filtering for pulsed xenon or carbon arc lamps. The halftone dot quality will not be up to par if magenta filtering is used. If repeated use of color compensating mask is required, the separation negative ranges should also be increased. Whenever a filter is placed over the lens, the amount of light passing through the lens to the film will be reduced. Since you are adjusting the exposure to place the highlight dot very accurately in the copy, you will have to change your exposure to compensate for the change in the color compensating filter added to the lens. So what is the general rule? For each color compensating filter added to the lens, regardless of color, the exposure will have to be lengthened by a 0.15 log exposure increase for pulsed xenon, or one half the color compensating filter number. The filter has the same effect as adding a 0.15 neutral density filter. So if you are making the screen positives with tungsten illumination incandescence, use the color compensating number as the filter density. Using an exposure computer simply adds 0.1 to the separation negative highlight density on the density scale, and the new exposure time will be given. Now we start our discussion on the screen positives. Now the procedure for making the screen positives in the camera is what? Place the cyan separation negative in the copy board, mask around the edges of the separation negative as I already explained to you earlier also. So now the process of making the screen positive is hopefully clear to you now. So in order to summarize the entire process, what we have to do after masking the edges to avoid flare, the contact screen has to be placed at 15-degree angle over a piece of litho orthofilm. A trial exposure has to be made with a color compensating filter over the lens. Then the processing of the film in the normal manner for halftone is to be done. So if you are making the screen positives in a contact vacuum frame, place the separation negative on top of the contact screen using a jig which has register pins to maintain the correct angle between the screen and separation negative. Right? Now evaluate the processed cyan screen positive. You are about to make the most difficult judgment in all of color work, that is determining where exactly to place the highlight dots. The highlight dot must be placed in diffused highlight of the copy. The highlight dot is moved by changing the exposure of the screen positive. Compare the screen positive to the original color copy. Make sure that the 5% highlight dot will print detail in the whitest areas of the copy but will not print in any specular highlights. Reflection copy will require the highlight dot to print just below the first step. Then adjust the contrast of the screen positive with the color compensating filters so that 95% dot falls in the darkest shadow, or about 2 steps more dense on the step tablet if working from the transparency. Now occasionally a transparency or reflection print will not have a neutral white highlight. Determining the location for the highlight dot is then much more difficult. The cameraman must look for other clues as to the level of whatever light colors appear in the original. Often an estimate can be made of how much one of the process colors is needed in a particular place. Then it is a matter of balancing the other two process colors to the printer to satisfy the gray balance requirements when no estimate can be made as to where to place the highlight, and follow the general placement that you would be familiar for similar for the transparency. For most normally exposed transparencies, the highlight is found in the step that is one step less dense on the original scale than the A control patch. For duplicate transparencies, the diffused highlight is usually located one step more dense on the original step tablet than the A control patch. Reflection copy is almost always the same. The first step being bare paper having a density of 0.0 should not print any dot at all. Any tone that is slightly more dense would carry the highlight dot. The 0.0 step on a reflection original is usually considered the specular highlight and should not print, as I've already mentioned. Assuming that the separations are made similar to the others, the contrast can be adjusted similar to other originals. Use the same color compensating filtration that you have found to work most of the time for your good separations. You may not, or you should know if you have been successful until you have made your color proof. Sometimes, if only the level of exposure is wrong for the screen positives, Farmer's reducer can be used to etch down the highlight dot location enough to make a good set of screen positives. So what is Farmer's reducer? Although you have some idea, but I will be explaining in the end of the lecture series on color reproduction also. If you are not sure where to place the shadow dot, however, place the 95% dot either in the border of the transparency or the step of the step tablet that had a density of 2.6 on the original. For reflection copy, place the 100% dot in the last step of the grayscale. If the highlight dot is correct, but the shadow dot is too close to the highlight, use more color compensating yellow filtering. That would enhance the distance between or distribution between the highlight and the shadow dots. If the shadow dot is not printing dark enough in the last step of the step tablet, use less of the color compensating yellow filter, but don't forget to adjust the exposure if you change the color compensating filtering. Then locate the mid-tone control step, which is 65% dot for cyan. It should be just slightly below the 0.7 step for reflection copy. In a transparency, it should be down 0.9 from the highlight step on the original scale. If the mid-tone location is too close to the highlight, use more color compensating yellow filtering. If the mid-tone step is too far away from the highlight, use less color compensating yellow filtering. Changing the color compensating filtering will change the contrast to the entire range of the contact screen. The placing of the highlight dot is very much critical in your discussion, in our discussion of the making the contact positives or so basically. Okay, so this holds another importance in the preparation of screen positives in indirect method. The dot printing in the diffused highlight must not be off more than plus minus 0.5%. The mid-tone placement is the next most important. It should be placed just as described above and should not vary by more than plus minus 3%. The shadow placement is the least critical. If any sacrifice in location has to be made, it can be done in the shadow area. The shadow dot can vary as much as plus minus 5% and still be usable. Assuming that you now have a perfect cyan screen positive, the screening for the magenta and yellow negatives will be an easy task. The ideal separation negatives are made so that the exact same color compensating filter and screen exposure can be used for all three process color screen positives. By placing the magenta and yellow separation negatives in the copy board in turn and angling the contact screen accordingly, the magenta and yellow screen positives will be produced. The magenta and yellow separations are usually so close in their END values that it is convenient to make them both equal throughout the scale. The highlight step will print 4% dot plus minus 0.5%. The mid-tone step will print 50% dot plus minus 3%, and the shadow step should print about 85% dot plus minus 5%. Make sure that the highlight dot of all three process colors is almost exactly the same, and do not allow the magenta to print heavier than the cyan, otherwise gray balance will be affected. The black screen positive is exposed so that the smallest printing dots fall in the same step as the mid-tone control step. If the black separation negative is properly made, the same color compensating filter as was determined to be correct for the other separations will produce the correct amount of black in the shadow areas. Each transparency having different densities in the shadow areas will cause the black to print amounts anywhere from 40% to 90% maximum printing dot. It is possible that a transparency may have no shadows and very little of the black areas. Since this is a photomechanical process, the amount of black printing will be governed automatically by the densities that were in the shadow areas in the separation negative. A skeleton black will print properly when the B control step prints approximately a 50% dot size. Variations in separations are now to be discussed. Separation negative making, being a photographic process, is fraught with variables that are difficult to control. There is going to be some expected variance of densities and density ranges of the separation, and for the ideal densities as well. In other words, you will not be dealing with perfect separations at all. It will become necessary to manipulate screen positive exposures and color compensating filtration to adjust the screen contrast to fit the poorly made separations. So, begin by making an acceptable cyan screen positive from the separation negative using a transmission density, a densitometer actually. Measure the density of the step on the step tablet in the cyan separation negative that you determined was your diffused highlight, and measure the density of the shadow step of the cyan separation negative. Record the densities and exposure data derived from the test. Perfect separation negatives have to be made in order to facilitate the making of screen positives with identical exposures and color compensating filtration. Therefore, we can determine what an ideal set of separation negatives should look like. Since we know dot values are needed in all printers, the highlight dots should be nearly the same for the cyan, magenta and yellow printers. Therefore, the separation negative highlight densities should be the same. The shadow of the magenta and yellow should print 10% less than the shadow of the cyan. To accomplish less printing dot size, just make the magenta and yellow separation negative densities in the shadow areas about 0.15 more dense than the shadow separation negative density. In doing so, they stop more light and make less printing dot in the screen positive. The black screen positive for a skeleton black would print the smallest dot in the midtone step. So by careful analysis, you can determine what your set of ideal separation negatives should look like in the highlight and shadow steps. This would facilitate the making of perfect screen positives using identical screen exposures and color compensating filtration. After determining what your ideal separation would look like, you can compare each of your separation negatives to each ideal separation negative. The first step in adjusting your screening conditions to the not so perfect separation negatives to determine the required change in color compensating filtration to compensate for the incorrect densities. The actual cyan is identical to the ideal cyan since you calibrated using that cyan separation negative. So the color compensating filter would remain the same as used with the ideal cyan separation negative. The actual magenta separation negative density range is 0.05 shorter than the ideal magenta separation. So the screen density range must be shortened by 0.05 also. The magenta positive will therefore require a color compensating yellow instead of color compensating higher color compensating yellow if carbon arc lamps are used. The yellow separation negative is 0.05 longer in range than the ideal yellow separation negative, and the contact screen's BDR or basic density range will have to be stretched to fit, right? The black separation negative matches that of the ideal black separation M minus B density range. So an easy method to screen the black separation for the offset skeleton black is to make the separation negative M minus B density range the same as the other process colors M minus B density range, so that skeleton black mainly affects in the midtone and the shadow area. The color compensating filtering determined to be your standard for ideal separation negatives can also be used for the black when the M minus B density ranges agree. For full-scale black printers, the screening will have to be adjusted to carry printing dots throughout the entire scale. Keep in mind that when making screen positives from separation negatives, the screen is adjusted to fit the separations. The screen must either be stretched to spread the H2S location on the grayscale with color compensating filtering, or the screen may be shortened to move the H2S range closer by using less color compensating filtering. You are adjusting each screen positive by comparing each actual separation negatives to each ideal negative. You cannot change the separations once they are made. Also important to note is that, as a rule of thumb given above, they are only approximations. You may need that your light source, you may find that your light source and screen may require slightly more or less change in filtration to get the desired effect on each screen positive. Next, the exposure for each screen positive has to be calculated. If the separation negative highlight densities were identical, the resulting halftone screen positives would be identical in the highlight step using the same screening exposure. Since most separation negative highlight densities don't match, the resulting printing dots in the highlight steps can be made equal by adjusting the exposure. The effective density of the color compensating filter used can be compensated for by adjusting the exposure times for its effective density using an exposure control device, right? Then also we have to understand the black printer, being a skeleton black, will require the smallest printing dot to be located in the M step, right? Because that is the nature. So let me just draw that. Why I am saying that, although you know all this stuff, I have already explained it to you earlier also. If you remember, what do you mean by your skeleton black? If this is your 4 color combination, so let us see that this is your basically 3 color combination. So your black is like this, right? So this is your 4 color, this is your 3 color, this is your black representation. So ultimately, you see, your black is starting from which? If you compare this, your black is starting from which area? Only the M. So M minus B density range is very vital, and most importantly, the black should actually print the least dot sizes in which areas? In M, that is mid-tone areas, right? Because for the skeleton black, right, like this, M is basically, it's, you can say it is like it's half tone, it's like the highlight area basically. Okay, so that is why I said the M density of the separation negative is essential, and it should have the smallest printing dot in the M step for the skeleton black, actually black printer. Screen positives for photo engravings are made in a similar manner, except that the dot requirements are slightly different. The highlight dots are made larger, right? The shadow areas print slightly less, and black printer is a full scale printer. So this concept is keep in mind. We'll be coming back to this concept a little bit later also. It's very important, very interesting concept. Other printing processes may require still other dot size requirements, even though the technique of screen positive making is basically the same. A screen making up to this point has been entirely with the color compensating positive filter method of contrast control to make adjustments for copy variations and separation negative difference. As I have already mentioned earlier, that this method of using color compensating filtration method has certain limitations to how far the astray separation negatives can be and still make the screen positives correctly. The 3 exposure method of making screen positives might give more latitude in adjusting the screen conditions to the separation negatives. Using the 3 exposure method, the main exposure is adjusted to place the mid-tone dot sizes in the mid-tone control step. The flash exposure is used to stretch out the magenta screen's density range in the highlight area to be able to shift the highlight dot farther away from the mid-tone dot location. Another way of thinking about that change is to realize the highlight dot will be made larger. Care should be exercised not to use an excessive amount of flash that would place highlight dots of all process colors in all areas of the reproduction. Now, if you start printing large cyan dots in yellows, for instance, the yellow will become very dirty, obviously. All the light pastel colors will begin to look dirty. The bump exposure is used then to increase the shadow contrast of the screen positive, right? When the midtones are printing correctly and the shadow dots are printing large enough dots, the bump exposure will add density in the shadows without having much effect on the midtones or the highlights. The 3 exposure method of screen positive making appears at first glance to be more complicated. However, with automated systems, various correct exposures can be computed. It may also be found out that the set of screen positives are close to being perfect, but that the highlight dots are not quite equal and will print too heavy. Etching the screen positives with Farmer's reducer, that is with a combination of potassium ferricyanide and sodium thiosulfate, will reduce the size of all the printing dots, which we refer to as global or flat etching. That will be coming the last lecture of this color reproduction unit. Be sure here that the screen positive has been properly washed before etching. Any residual hypo will cause the screen positive to become cloudy in the etch bath. That you already know why hypo causes cloudiness. Any localized dot etching should be done at this stage. After making the complete set of screen positives, evaluate the entire set, comparing the highlights, midtone steps, and the shadow steps to be sure that they all meet the specific endpoint dot sizes needed to produce a good color reproduction. So this comes with how well you judge the screen positives. So one more step remains to be taken if screen negatives will be required. The screen positives must be contact printed to make the screen negatives, and care must be exercised so that no unintentional dot size change takes place during the contact operation, and be sure to inspect the screen negatives carefully. If you find that a slight size change is necessary in the highlight step, the contact printing exposure can be purposely varied to cause a slight change in the dot size. This is called dry etching. Okay, so hopefully all this that I have discussed till now made some sense and you could understand these concepts well. So later on I'll be also discussing some additional information. I'll be providing you some additional information on this color separation implementation or application actually. So some important aspects or concepts I'll be discussing in the next lecture or so. So you see, there are, apart from the conventional methods of color separation, I will be discussing the electronic color separation technique also. But apart from that, I thought of discussing and throwing some light on some of the important aspects that you should, I think, keep in mind while doing the color separation work or considering the various parameters for color separation work. So one important aspect that comes definitely behind it is the fact that what is a neutral density filter, right? So I think you have I have mentioned it also that you have to use neutral density filters during various during various color separation stages basically. So these filters are those that absorb light equally throughout the visible spectrum, and as well as they absorb the ultraviolet light as well. They are used in point source lights and lenses to dim the amount of available light so that the exposures are reasonable to control and are not too short. Since they do not scatter light, they can be used in lenses as well as anywhere else in the optical system. Their densities absorb a known amount of light for any given density, and if you want to make a 5% bump exposure using the same length of time as the main exposure, a total density of 1.3 would be used, right? Another source of neutral density is a gray contact screen that I think I had mentioned earlier also in when discussing about halftone screens, different types of halftone screens. Some graphic arts enlargers have devices for angling the contact screen that hold the screen suspended away from the film during the film loading operation. If a bump exposure is made on this type of enlarger, the screen need not be removed from the optical path during the bump. If it is not in contact with the film, it will behave as though it were a zero point 0.6 neutral density filter, and by adding a 1 neutral density to the lens, a 10% bump is achieved, eliminating the necessity to remove the screen from the holder for the bump. Right? So this is mainly about the neutral density and neutral density filters. The other parameter that I wanted to talk about is the Q factor and the problems related to it. I think I had mentioned this earlier also during the color separation methodologies. Now you see, silver halide films attain their density as the developed silver particles in the emulsion absorb and scatter the light hitting them. If a piece of film is placed in an optical device that projects only very directional light, like specular reflection, as compared to a device that illuminates the film from all directions, that film will appear to have an increased density. Much of the light that is scattered by the film placed in a condenser enlarger will not reach the film being exposed. The resulting weak exposure indicates that the film negative appeared to have greater density than measured. That type of optical system with condensers is considered as a specular system, directional reflection. The same piece of silver halide film measured with a standard transmission densitometer will not appear to have as much density as it did in the enlarger. Thus, a discrepancy occurs. The culprit is the difference in density between the two optical systems. A densitometer is designed to measure what we call diffuse density, right, in all directions. Most optical systems in use in the graphic arts are diffuse systems. It is important to use the same optical system for measurement and for exposing the film. Otherwise, accurate exposure computations are impossible. This phenomenon of scattering of light is called the Q factor. The Q factor is the amount that the density has to be multiplied by to account for the apparent change in density when using different types of optical systems. Any type of scattering device will present these problems in specular systems. Silver halide color correcting masks used to make separation negatives will scatter light. If they are used in a condenser enlarger, they will appear as though they have a greater density range than that measured on the densitometer. Allowance is made for this discrepancy by making the mask's density range about 0.1 shorter than needed for a diffuse system to compensate for that actually. If problems continue to exist using a silver mask, then a dyed material which is non-scattering, which actually transmits and not scatters, can be used. The same problems just mentioned in masks due to light scattering properties of silver halide film will be found in many control devices as well as silver step tablets. Accurate exposure computations for exposing through transparency dye layers are impossible if they are made based on densitometer measurements made from silver control patches. To overcome this problem, be sure that any exposure control devices placed in enlargers be dye densities rather than silver densities. When making contact separations, silver step tablets may be used. Minor Q factor problems may arise when making screen positives from separation negatives in a camera or an enlarger. Each type of separation negative film may exhibit a different degree of scattering. Exposure calculation should be based on densities measured on that film and not on other type of patches that would exhibit a different degree of scattering, right? Now, the next point that I would like to talk about, as you can see in front of you, is basically the discussion on the type of contact screen. So I'll just show the nature of the contact screen, the dye-based screen basically. So this is where the lines are, and there are no lines, right? This is how the contact screen appears to be with the vignette pattern already etched into it, right? So let us talk about the contact screen. A contact screen consists of dot images that are vignetted. Each dot acts as though it's a pile of density, right? So this is basically the pile of density that we're talking about. The light that passes through forms a dot on the lith film that will grow in density until the density is solid with no openings. Ultimately, the nature of the image formed in the lith film in the transparency will appear to be like this, right? When making halftone negatives, Standard practice is to adjust the main exposure until only a small opening is left for the light to pass through in the highlight areas of the picture to expose a small dot on the printing plate. This would be about a 5% dot for offset lithography, the minimum amount. Every contact screen has a certain range of densities on the original that can be reproduced. When the highlight dot is placed in the appropriate step, the shadow dot will fall in a dark step of the original. Any step darker on the copy will not produce any dots on the halftone negative. These clear spaces on the film will not reproduce the copy in the proportion to its original density. The size of the acceptable shadow dot might be only a 95% printing dot for lithography. Every contact screen has a range of densities on the original that the screen can reproduce without a flash exposure. This range is called the basic density range. When the densities of the original are plotted on a graph along the x-axis, as you can see, and the percent dot printing values are plotted on the y-axis, the contrast of the contact screen may be illustrated as is given. The two screens plotted are a gray screen and a magenta screen, right? The gray screen has a shorter BDR from the highlight to shadow, therefore has higher contrast. Notice the steeper curve of the negative gray screen in the highlight area, right? The relationship between BDR of the screen and its contrast is basically shown here. The shorter the BDR, the higher the contrast. The longer the BDR, lower is the contrast. By comparing the two screens, the location of the midtones, that is 50% printing dot, can also be controlled. In making halftone negatives, such as in direct screen, the flash exposure is used to lower the shadow contrast. It is important to understand relationships to be able to take advantage of the available screen BDR. By careful selection of a screen with the correct BDR, one can adjust the highlight contrast of a color separation. It is even possible to select a contact screen with about a 0.2 shorter BDR than the other screens to be used to make the cyan direct screen separation halftone negative. The bump exposure could be eliminated, saving some production time. As you can see on the right hand plot, this illustrates how the three exposures basically affect the halftone curves. A bump exposure will increase the highlight contrast, obviously, as indicated in the steeper highlight contrast by the dotted line. With the added bump exposure, the halftone is overexposed unless the main exposure is reduced. The amount of exposure reduction is indicated by the arrow can be computed using an automated system. It is mandatory that it is always essential to compute the exposures based on the original densities and not on the negative densities just produced. Otherwise, the basis of next development or next measurement will also change. The change in main exposure is called the log E shift, right? That means that the exposure moved the curve sideways on the exposure axis. In this case, the input scale of the graph is calibrated in densities instead of time units. And you can see that the curve did not change the shape or slope, just the position was changed. As you can see over here, just the position of the graph changed, and it has got a much this is the basically the bump exposure, this is the less flash exposure that has been given. So this is how it has been achieved. As you already know that the flash exposure will lower the contrast in the shadow area of a halftone negative, right? The dotted line on the curve in the shadow area on the right hand plot that you can see in front of you shows the change caused by shortening up the flash exposure. Less flash exposure would give the halftone more shadow contrast. And as you can see on the left hand plot, that the two screens have a different shape in the highlight and shadow areas. The positive screen has higher contrast in the shadow areas and lower contrast in the highlight area when making halftone negative, right? So here, as you can see, it has got let me just open it up. So yeah, as you can see that the as I said, the positive screen has got a higher contrast in the shadow area, right? Better contrast in the shadow area. This is the positive screen, and it has got lower, the negative has got lower contrast in the shadow area, right? So This also has to be kept in mind. And now, if making screen positives from separation negatives, the highlight is the dense end of the step tablet. Therefore, the highlight of the screen positive would be at the right hand side of the x-axis near density of 2 point, which is the reverse is happening. The positive screen would give a higher highlight contrast in this use, hence its name positive contact screen. Okay. Now, coming to another very important aspect, that is this, as you can see here, the concept of formation of soft dots and hard dots. You see, soft dots are characteristic of all first generation halftones made with halftone screens. They have a certain degree of dot fringe on the small dots. There is also a degree of dot veiling between the larger dots formed with more exposure, such as the clear spaces in a halftone negative highlight area. A small amount of density is formed between the dots where there is supposed to be clear film. The dot image is formed by exposing a first generation halftone to another piece of film, or a printing plate will produce a hard dot. A hard dot does not have any significant dot fringe. Exposures made through a hard dot negative to a plate will change due to slight exposure or development variations. But the resulting dots made from a soft dot negative or positive can change size due to any variations of exposure and development, as you can see in the right side image formation as in the given in the right hand side. Soft dot negatives and positives are considered easier to dot etch. Etching a soft dot negative removes the dot fringe, causing a dot size change. Etching a hard dot negative just removes overall density, since there is little if any fringe, right? Because the dot gain has been reduced over there. If a printer wishes to etch contact negatives made from positives, he usually uses a film other than the standard contact film to make the negatives. A standard lith type film is used to try to maintain a degree of fringe to etch away, basically. Alright. And knowing what causes soft dots and hard dots and knowing how to treat both of them can be used to your advantage, right? Now, the next topic that I would like to talk about is basically your undercolor removal. Okay, so as I already mentioned, I think, what is the basic concept of undercolor removal? If I may just draw it out. You see, the concept of undercolor removal, if you can see this particular plot, right? So it starts addition or generation of black from the mid-tone areas. That is why this type of black is known as a skeleton black. It is replacing the three color combinations. This black is basically accounting and replacing the three color neutral gray, if it is neutral at all. Three color gray in which areas? From the mid-tone to the shadow areas, basically. Okay, A, M and B you can say, so otherwise different notations we will not use. So between this M minus B this region, that is the mid-tone to the shadow area, when we are replacing the black only, when we are replacing the three color grays only in the mid-tone to shadow areas, not throughout the image but only in the certain area, this is basically known as under color removal, right? So if you look at a plot of this, how will it look? So let us assume that initially you had this combination, right? This person cyan, this person magenta, this person yellow. Now in case of your under color removal, what you are doing, you are removing, or not removing, you are basically replacing the gray component. You are replacing the gray component only in the mid-tone to shadow area. That means you are not replacing the entire this thing, cyan, magenta, yellow overlaps of gray, but you are replacing only a certain percentage. What is a certain percentage? Maybe in this plot you are replacing, let us say 40%. Let us say 40% of the gray you are replacing using your this thing, your black. Actually, what they have done over here, they have reduced all the colors by 20% and added 20% of so this will be 20%, actually 20% black only in which area? The mid-tone to the shadow area. And you can see from in this plot also, we are not adding black throughout the image. If we had added black throughout the image, the black channel would have been something like this. That is, it would have started from the highlight. We do this also. This is basically known as the gray component replacement. If you see this particular picture here, you are basically removing the least amount of color which is present. So here in this three color combination, the least color present here is cyan. So you are totally eliminating, and you are basically, how much cyan is over here? 60% cyan is over here. So you will remove that 60% cyan, 60% magenta, 60% yellow. So cyan is totally removed, and you will add basically 60% of black. So you will replace 60% of cyan, magenta, yellow overlap with 60% of black. But this is no longer a skeletal gray. That is why we refer GCR as a wide black addition, and we refer UCR as a narrow black addition. Narrow and wide in the sense that which area of the A, M and B scale are they replacing the overlapping grays with. This UCR is replacing the grays only from the mid-tone to shadow area. That is why it's narrow. However, your GCR is replacing the grays throughout the scale. That means from the highlight to the shadow, depending upon how much you want to replace. That is why its effect is very much wide within the scale of tones. That is why GCR is referred to as the wide black, whereas UCR is basically referred to as the narrow black. So this hopefully this idea is I think clear to you. In this case also, you can see, as you can see over here also. Now, the removal of some of the three printers in the gray and black areas only, not colored areas, will facilitate press work. Now, what is the purpose of this? A lot of things. It will reduce the amount of process colors. So overall cost effectiveness will increase. As we know, the cost of process colors is higher than that of the black. Since the overall amount of ink is decreased, that is why there will be these black optimization techniques will result in better image quality. Dot gain will be less, set of problems will be less, and of course in this UCR case, since we are adding black to compensate for the deficiencies of the process colors, definitely it will result in a better contrast, definitely in the shadow areas. Okay, the lesser amount of three colors printing at any one place will help in trapping, facilitate better ink drying, and will use less expensive process color inks, as I have already mentioned. The black printer will need to print slightly heavier in the dark shadow areas to replace the amount of gray removed by the other three colors. So how you are going to control in conventional method, how you are going to control that in which area you are starting the black from. So in case of UCR, you are starting the black from basically the M areas, that is the mid-tone areas. It will have the black will have the least dot size in the mid-tone areas. So you will give less exposure to the black printer or the black origin through the black filters. Through the color compensating filters. And if you want to use GCR, there is a gray component replacement, then you will give more exposure to the for generating the black printer separation through the color compensating filter, so that black dots can be generated right from the highlight areas. So that is how you are reproducing. I think I have also mentioned this earlier also. Now, since UCR is done only in the black areas, the black indirect continuous tone separation negative is used to make the UCR mask. A piece of blue sensitive masking film or a piece of pan masking film is used in contact with the black separation negative in a vacuum frame. A piece of diffusing sheet is placed between the two films with the frosted side towards the light source. The exposure and development will have to be adjusted to produce a mask that is very short in range and has a maximum density of about 0.5, with the lightest densities only several steps above the B control step. Cover 1/2 of the grayscale of the black separation during the mask exposure for use later. Now the UCR mask will be placed in register between the light source and the separation negatives during the screen positive making. Make the separation negatives to the same M point values as you would normally using the portion of the grayscale that did not contain any undercolor removal mask. That was the portion you covered during the UCR mask making step. The normal screening in the unmasked half of the scale should render the three process colors printing values that are correct for the amount of UCR taking place. You will note that the shadow end of the scale will be printing lighter than normal in the three process colors. The black printer screen positive will have to print slightly heavier than normal to make up for the lack of gray printed by the other three process colors. The B patch may have to print 60% printing dot or possibly even heavier. The normal amount of black printing in the B step is usually 50%. An alternate method to accomplish UCR is to make a short flash exposure to each separation negative through the black separation negative. This has the best effect. This has the not I will say the best effect, but some effect at least of lowering the potential printing dot size in each process color screen positive in the black areas. Undercolor removal for direct screen separation is accomplished by using a UCR mask on litho film at the image plane of that mask. On the direct screen enlarger, the mask is placed over the contact screen during its exposure and used when flashing the three process colors. When making contact separations, the UCR mask would be exposed under the transparency and then placed over the contact screen during the flash exposure. The UCR mask should be short range and not permit any light to pass through to the grayscale above the M control patch. Using the UCR mask for direct screen for an additional flash exposure to the normal flash on the three process color separation has the effect of reducing the printing dot sizes in the shadow areas, only neutral gray areas. The longer the flash, the less printing dot will occur. An alternate technique for direct screen UCR is to utilize the color correcting mask over the contact screen during a portion of the flash exposure. The percent of mask exposed will depend on how much printing dot area you wish to remove. That is what I told earlier also, in order to adjust the percentage of the UCR or from where exactly it will start from. This technique not only gives greater color saturation of each color but tends to remove unwanted process colors in areas where they can be replaced with black. So this is special. This is actually more towards the GCR component rather than the UCR component actually. Also, I would like to now just basically compare the quality of the images basically. Okay, so let us do that. So now let us basically compare the color separation techniques that we have talked about just now, mainly comparing the quality of direct versus indirect separation. So as you can see, the dot etching is, as I have already mentioned the reasons also quite elaborately, the dot etching is more easily achieved in indirect method as screen positive screens basically contain or separations contain soft dots, so that is more easy to etch. Secondly, enlargement can be done easily in indirect method, right? And thirdly, finally, the gravure printing requires continuous tone positive, which is provided better by the, or which is actually provided only by the indirect method. So electronic separation does not have, the direct separation technique does not have that capability to reproduce that basically, to reproduce continuous tone positive. So because of all these reasons, indirect method, although it may be a little bit cost sensitive and include number of steps, yet in terms of the quality and the flexibility of the indirect method and the various processes involved in it, sometimes it is preferred to use indirect method over the direct method, right? Now, before ending this particular topic, I would also like to talk a little bit about one other aspect. So let us, since we have completed our discussion on the differences and the processes involved in direct and indirect method of color separation, now let us also talk a little bit about the quality basically, and what are the parameters that we have to keep in mind while judging a color work. So how can we define that this is a good color work, this is a bad color work? So what are the parameters that I will be discussing in order of their importance in color reproduction? I will try to maintain a certain chronological sequence, but the importance of individual parameters definitely may vary. So starting with the first one. First is the psychological reference colors. You see, there are colors seen regularly that we tend to remember best. And research has shown that people tend to agree on the appearance of these particular colors. So, blue sky, green grass, red apples, human flesh are such examples which we see on a regular basis. Now, these colors must be reproduced as close as possible to the real object's appearance. Consideration must be given to slight losses in color saturations due to the printing ink deficiencies. If the colors are slightly less saturated than in real life, we will adapt to their appearance only if all the colors in the picture are slightly desaturated. And do not allow one color to be altered proportionally more than another, as it will stick out and look unnatural. So care has to be given in order to reproduction of the colors that we see on a regular basis more than the other less sensitive colors basically. The second parameter on which to judge the color work is gray balance. This we have discussed a lot actually in the previous lectures. So the original grayscale must appear as a neutral gray in the reproduction when printed with the three process colors. Any neutral area in the picture must also appear as a gray. So do not allow these neutral areas to become pinkish or bluish or yellowish or any other color for that matter. The third one is another very important thing, that is tone reproduction. This also we have discussed in a lot of detail. The contrast of the reproduction must be adjusted to produce a pleasing reproduction. To check the separation negatives that are screened, make a photography print of the cyan screen negative. If the print looks like a pleasing black and white print, chances are that the reproduction will also look good. So you have to keep in mind that you have to keep the contrast of the highlight and midtone areas intact, keep it very contrasty, and thereby reducing or compressing the contrast in the shadow areas to which our eyes are not that much perceptive of. The fourth important parameter is the extreme detail, the image sharpness basically, where we can see the extreme detail in reproduction will make the reproduction appear more desirable. Using definitely our unsharp masks, use all the knowledge and skill to enhance the detail and not blur the image using the unsharp masking technique. And the final consideration of a parameter to determine whether the color has been reproduced correctly, well or not, is the color correction part. Correcting for the impurities in the processing is a necessary part of color correction or color reproduction. Since photographic masking can take care of most of the problems, only a small amount of dot etching should be necessary to make minor changes to suit particular customer's need. Now, keeping the above considerations and conditions in mind, what is it that causes difference between good and bad quality reproductions? You see, many people do not give proper attention to the exact requirements of the printing process. And the easiest way to tackle the problems is to consider each item needing more careful attention. Screening the separation negative is the most critical problem area of color reproduction, and it should be made sure that you maintain the proper balance of the three printers to maintain neutrality. The highlight of the dot size should be nearly equal on all three printers and all. So primarily, if we keep our goals basically, so what are the parameters based on which our color work will be judged, if we keep in mind those conditions or those parameters, and if we work together to achieve those particular conditions and to ensure that these conditions are met, and we have already studied all the processes, all the techniques basically that will ensure that these conditions are met successfully. So if we can do that, definitely our color correction work will be very good in terms of the quality that our client has requested or is basically expecting. Okay, so with this we come to the end of this particular lecture. I think this is a two-part lecture. So in the first part we saw some of the the continuous separation making in the indirect process. In the next part we saw the various screen separations, and finally some of the nitty-gritties and various other parameters and the quality assessment part of indirect method of color separation. So you understand that this is a little bit complicated than the direct method, but still this has so many advantages. That is why we sometimes prefer this indirect method of color separation technique. Okay, so thank you for listening. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.